This edition of Sports Galore is proudly brought to you by Subway. And now, here's your hosts, Mark Allen and Adam Treloar.
Hello and welcome to Sports Galore. I'm Sam Gaston, replacing Mark Allen this week. Adam Treloar, Marco's disappeared on us.
I know, he's disappeared again.
On probably the most exciting episode we've had so far. We've got a guest here for the first time. Gil Griffin, you've got a great story to tell.
Gaz Griffin.
Gil Gaz.
I like that. I like that. Well, g'day, guys.
Welcome.
Yeah.
And you've got a great story to tell. You're from LA, here in Australia, and you're obsessed with Aussie rules football.
I am totally obsessed with Aussie rules football, and there are a million great stories in LA.
Just quickly, we just need to get you on the Collingwood bandwagon. We know you're an avid Freo fan, so
yeah, what's going on there, Gil?
slowly we can get you over to the Maggies.
Well, you know what? I sat there in the rain, first row, in the cheer squad, so I was totally dressed in
In the
purple.
Collingwood cheer squad or the Freo cheer
Well, the
squad?
Freo cheer squad, and you didn't help ads with your 33 disposals and running roughshod over us.
Sorry, mate, I'm sorry.
No, well done.
Now, we've
Well
got
done.
this great book, Jumping at the Chance. Great book. Obviously, you've written it, and we've had a brief read about it. It's about, obviously, the American guys and trying to change the way in the way the Americans view football and hopefully branching it out over there. So can you briefly explain, bits about the book and what was your ambition behind it to write about it and really bring it to here and really get it over to the Australians?
Yeah, no worries. 2012 was when the first combine was held. The AFL had it on American shores, 10 minutes from my house. And as into footy as I am, and being a journalist, I had to cover it. And I ended up writing a piece for the AFL Record. And then Eric Wallace got chosen out of the 2012 combine by North Melbourne, right?
Melbourne, yep.
2013, Jason Holmes got picked up by St Kilda.
Lives around the corner from me.
Oh, really?
There you
Okay.
go. Yeah, there you
And then 2014 was your boy, Mason Cox.
Mason
Our boy,
Cox.
Who's
Mason
that?
Cox.
We've never heard of him.
Well, it's kind of hard to miss him. He's kind of tall, kind of has this strange accent.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
But yeah, so after that got to be a trend, I wrote a long story in SBNation.com, a U.S. website.
Yep.
And fortunately for me, there was a literary agent who has in-laws in Adelaide, and he read the story and he approached me and said, "Have you ever thought about writing a book about this?" And my mother and my wife have always been on me to try and write something, and they said, "You know what your problem is? You're getting in your own way too much." And I had never written a book proposal.
Just do it.
Yeah, just do it.
Just do
So
it, mate.
once they sent me a template for how to write a book proposal, I was all in.
Yeah.
And the project took off from there, and what you have are individual chapters about the different stories of the men and women,
yep.
because now we've got Kim Hemingway
Yep.
and Katie Klatt that
Yep.
played in the exhibition match at the SCG.
Yep.
So yeah, so these are chapters about all of them.
It's a great read.
It's
Thank
it.
you.
And it's so interesting as well. You pick up the book and you read all these stories about American guys that are finding their way in Australia and finding out about footy. Before this book came along, you've been an Australian and footy specialist for years, really.
Sure.
How did you learn the game? When did you learn it? What attracted you to it?
Okay, well, it has a couple of Collingwood connections.
Oh, here we go. This is
So
what we like to
you're,
hear.
you're going to like
Exactly
this.
what we wanna
Now, in the early 80s, and I'm dating myself here, when I was a teenager, ESPN, when it was just getting started, used to show VFL matches to fill up
Wouldn't
time.
even believe it.
What's that?
They wouldn't show it now, would they?
No, actually, well, they don't, but thankfully Fox Soccer Plus and Fox Sports 1 and 2 do. So, yeah. So, what happened was we had these matches late at night, early in the morning. It's probably when my dad and I came home from a Mets game in New York, and I turned on the TV
right.
late at night. And I saw this thing going on, and I couldn't believe what I was seeing because it looked like basketball players outside running around,
No
chasing
pads.
the ball. Yeah, right.
Getting
No
cleaned up.
pads, and they were chasing this ball that kind of looked like an American ball.
Yeah.
But it wasn't really. But the strangest thing to my eyes were the goal umpires.
Yeah.
It's like, who are these
Goal
dudes? Who are these dudes
The
in
days
lab
they were in
coats
the-
and
the
hats
big
and the
hats as well,
flags?
yeah.
I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Now, you might be too young to remember that. No,
How
but
long did it take you to understand what that meant
Uh-huh.
and then what that meant?
okay. What happened was, we got to fast forward many years later, and there's my first
talking
Collingwood
years.
connection. Yeah.
Yes.
All right. I'm in a yoga class, and I'm planning my first holiday to Australia, and there's a young lady there who tells me, after I told her about my trip, she says, "Are you going to go see any sports?" I said, "Yeah, I'm going to go see Australian rules football."
Yeah.
And I said, "The problem is I don't really know the rules."
Yeah.
And she's Australian, and she said, "Well, my father and I are Collingwood supporters."
Oh.
And I will show you
right.
the videotape. This is how old it was, the videotape of a match. And I said, sure. So I invited her and her partner over for pizza. And the game she showed me was the 1990 Grand Final.
Oh, what a way
So
to
she
start.
told
What
me,
a game.
yeah. So she told me about the Collie Wobbles, and she told me about how big a victory this was. And she showed, I saw Tony Shaw, and who I just saw at the MCG in round 2. So I got to tell him I saw him in the first full match I ever saw. But it was a really big thing about how emotional it was, and the brawl with Essendon and that whole thing that went down. But then she started telling me the rules, and I started picking it up.
What's going on? Yep.
Yeah. So and you're gonna like this too. This is so funny because I used to teach high school English, and one of the things that I used to do with my students was they had to demonstrate their knowledge of vocabulary by writing a complete sentence using the word. So every time they got it right, I went like that, and then
Points the fingers.
yeah.
And what were they like?
Well, I got them indoctrinated. They know the game now, and I'd show them
really?
highlights. And whenever they had a sense that wasn't quite it, I was just like,
Oh, that's
Signal
great.
one behind.
yeah,
That is
exactly.
great.
There you go.
So yeah.
Well, I'd asked how long it took you to learn the goal signals. One thing I picked up in the book is it took you a while to find where the games were playing. The difference between a fixture and a schedule.
Yeah.
I would never think of that.
No, I could. When I was trying to find my first match, I could not for the life of me figure out what a fixture was because when we think of a fixture in America, it's like something with your plumbing. It's it's like this tube that you use. Yeah, it's a plumbing fixture. So I had no idea what the word fixture meant. And so it took me seriously 4 or 5 days to figure out, and then finally I just said, "Oh, what the hell? I'll click on it." And then boom, all the games come up. I was like, "Oh, okay, I see what's going on here." Yeah,
it's an interesting story. Now, look, I gave Ads this book a couple of weeks ago, and he went straight to page 110 or whatever, wherever
Big
it
Coggo.
is.
It's
Big Mason Cox comes in.
Chapter 19, is it?
Yeah.
You know what? I'm having a look.
I think it's. You know what? I think it's chapter 8. I want to say it's chapter 8.
Well, it's the one he jumped to first of all and had a read
of
about
course.
his team.
Not chapter 8.
Okay.
So while he does his research, tell us what you found out about
Chapter
Mason.
6.
Well, Mason, I had
Chapter
known.
6.
Chapter 6. Okay. And actually,
big Texan.
the reason why I named it the Texan is kind of a literary reference because one of my favorite books is a book called Catch-22 by Joseph Heller, and his first chapter in that book is called The Texan. And I was thinking, how cool would it be to have that kind of shout out with Mason? So I knew about Mason when he was on the AFL website in 2014, and I'd never seen him play at Oklahoma State. And I read about all the clubs that were interested and how he came out of the combine. And the first time I met him was here during grand final week of 2014.
All right, so when he was brand new here as well.
Yeah.
Well, he was brand new, but the thing that really impressed me was all the guys were gone on their holidays, and he was out here running, he was out here kicking, and he was just training all day long like a fiend.
Yeah.
And he told me later that the club had actually allowed him, they were going to allow him to go home early and then come back and have his first full preseason, but he insisted staying here until Christmas.
That's his mindset.
Yeah, that is his mindset.
And he's still like that now,
Absolutely.
isn't he?
Everything that has happened to Coco is off the back of his own hard work.
Yeah.
He's exceptional.
Yeah,
Exceptional.
Absolutely.
One of the most professional blokes I've ever met, and he's only been in the system for 2 years. So,
how quickly do you see him learning the game? Do you still see him picking up new things every week, or has it reached a point where he's...
Yeah, because I was talking to him last week about coaches and players, and I was just going through guys, just like I was talking to you guys, and he'd be like, Who's that? Who's that? And I'll be like, oh, like this guy here. He goes, no, I don't know who that is. I said, do you know who Nathan Fife is? He goes, nah. I said, he won the Brownlow last year.
Right.
He goes, I said, who do you know? He goes, oh, I know Gary Ablett, I know Lance Franklin. That's all I know. Bar that, doesn't know anyone. So I said to him, what's the difference between Brad and Chris Scott?
Oh, that's a hard one.
He knew that. So I thought I was going to get him there, but he goes, no, they're twins. I said, oh, there
Well,
you
it's
go.
funny because in America, we've got two coaches who are brothers in the NFL, the
That's,
Harbaughs.
Yeah.
The Harbaughs.
And they coach against each other in Super Bowl.
They did.
didn't
One of
They
them's
did.
not. Isn't one of them in college? Is he college coach now?
Well,
I'm pretty sure?
actually, I think it was Jim Harbaugh that used to coach at the University of San Diego, where I used to teach years ago.
Oh, really?
Yeah. But the
There
thing
you
is
go.
with Brad and Chris is like, well, as long as you call one of them Scotty, you're fine.
Yeah.
What are you going to do? So
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Now, we know plenty about Mason. He's making headlines over here, obviously. You obviously live in the States. Is there any impact that you see him popping up in the news, or his story starting to get recognised more?
Well, a little bit. I mean, the SB Nation story here that was written, I guess, when he kicked
we
one of the
posted it on
goals
the
of the
site
week
earlier in the week.
Yeah, that was really
Amazing.
good. But I really have to tell you something that when he was playing in Anzac Day and when he had that fabulous debut, I pitched stories. I pitched stories to the Dallas Morning News and to the New York Times because I wanted to say, look, do you understand the impact this guy is having?
Yeah.
Dallas didn't even respond. And the New York Times said, well, yeah, we actually covered this last year. And I had to suppress a lot of anger and say, look, you know what? I was with your reporter last year at the Combine. I was there. That's the last story you did.
Yep.
Do you understand that this man is a national sensation? He knocked the death of Prince off the front page. which is huge.
Yeah,
and he had this. I mean, the first goal of the match in front of 85,000 people, national television audience.
Fairy tale story.
How much more of a fairy tale could you possibly want?
Yeah.
Well, we know New York Times and Dallas will be watching this show, so
Yeah, exactly.
not good.
Next time he kicks a bag of goals,
Exactly.
get it on the
Next
front
time,
page.
get him on.
Right.
Get him on.
Now, Mason, just one chapter. You spoke to a range of guys. Obviously, you mentioned Eric Wallace, Jason Holmes, Matt Korchek playing for Carlton now, out of the University of Arizona. Can you tell us some about these guys and the other guys in the book that didn't make it all the way or haven't yet?
Absolutely. Matty Korchek.
Eric
okay.
Wallace, is he still on the list?
He's gone.
No,
home now.
they
gone home.
delisted
Okay.
him last year. As a matter of fact,
That's
one
right.
of the toughest conversations I've ever had was with Eric, and it was the morning after the grand final, and I was sitting down on a bench in Sydney with this beautiful view of Circular Quay, and Eric was inside his apartment in Melbourne, and he sounded really
Upset?
flat, totally flat,
Yeah.
because his family had just visited him the week before.
Yeah.
He knew he was getting delisted. And he had just done Wacky Wednesday with the Ruse and was totally part of that. He
Favourite
dressed
time
as
of the
Mr. T.
year. Yeah. Oh, that's
Yeah,
great.
yeah,
That's great.
He had the
Mr.
mohawk
T.
and the
Yeah,
jacket and
that's
You need to
everything.
try that, you said.
Yeah, right?
Mr. T. Yeah, why not?
But it was a hard conversation because he told me, and it's in the book, he said, I don't know what I'm going to do now.
Yeah.
But fortunately, he has a graduate degree. He
Yeah.
has got an undergraduate degree. He's a really bright guy, of course.
Yeah.
And so he tried out for the New Orleans Saints recently in the NFL.
did he?
Yeah, there was a rookie
Well, there you
camp
go.
for potential NFL players. I don't think that he's been picked up yet, but he's
Yeah.
also doing individual basketball coaching with Coach
Good
Up.
on him.
Yeah, and he's also an entrepreneur. He's a fascinating guy.
Yeah. He's got nothing to worry about.
Yeah. And the thing is with him, there was so much information I got from his Instagram pages and from his Twitter account.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like he left a museum behind him. And there were a lot of things that he had never told me about that I was able to pick up on through reading that. But so Eric is one guy. Matty Korchek is definitely learning. As a matter of fact, I just saw him up at Preston Oval playing against Jason.
Yeah.
The
Did you go watch it? Did you?
I had to go up
Yeah.
there. And Alexander Aricchio was up there
Yeah.
too. So I go on the field and after the match and I shake Matty's hand, give him a hug, and he's like, I got a lot to learn. And he sounded out of breath, and I was like, yeah, Matty, of course you have a lot to learn, but look how far you've come in a year.
Yeah.
Because I saw him at the Combine in Tampa in 2015. And he was really aggressive about the way he was going about this chain handball game they had going.
Yeah.
And he didn't have the best 3K time. He didn't have the highest vertical leap.
Yeah.
But what people saw, what the FL scouts saw, and especially what Carlton saw, was his desire and his competitiveness, and that's what pushed him over the top.
And what's so interesting about him as well, I read his chapter closely. I actually watched him play basketball at the University of Arizona a couple of years ago. He was in demand, really, wasn't he? When he finished his college career, he had player agents trying to get him to play basketball in Europe, and he actually chose to come to Australia over that.
Did he really?
Yeah, he did. Well, I mean, I'm sure you know this. You put any challenge in front of an athlete, how often do you turn that down?
Yeah.
You don't.
Mate, you don't.
No, you don't. And the other thing, too, that is really interesting with Matty and all the guys, really, is they have a choice. If they go to Europe, they're going to be dealing with some cultural and linguistic barriers and probably not make that much money.
Yeah.
But if they have an opportunity to learn a game from scratch, surmount that challenge, and be playing the number one sport in a country that doesn't have a language barrier and is reasonably similar to America, if I were in that position, I'd go for that option too.
Absolutely.
And these guys are often college graduates as well, so they're a little bit older and they're smart men by the time they get here.
They're smart and they're also physically developed, because we hear all the time here in Australia that the kids that get picked in the draft, 18 and 19 years old, and they want to go in the ruck or play up forward, that their bodies aren't developed.
Yeah.
But
Takes
so
time.
these guys are physically mature and have a little bit of life experience, and they also can mentor some of the young guys
And
too.
they're generally athletically pretty good.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, they've had really
Really
great
good.
facilities to work out of.
Absolutely.
See, that was another thing that interested me, because when the AFL had a real big investment in Papua New Guinea, I was really surprised that nobody from PNG has made a debut. But then when I talked to Kevin Sheehan about it, he was telling me that in PNG you just don't have the same facilities
the way
that you do in the U.S. So that's something I think
that's
American athletes really may be taking for granted.
Yeah. Question without notice for you. How would you feel if you had to go off to uni for a couple of years and the AFL system, you came in your 20s? How would players cope with that?
I don't know. I suppose you probably. I actually don't know, because I was obviously wasn't
it's
in that
completely
situation.
different situation, isn't
It's
it?
a tough question. Like for the guys, I'm assuming doing that. So it's basically getting drafted when you're 20, 21 years old, having to do school when you're younger. I suppose you mature, not quicker, but you matured by the time you get to the AFL. Like take Josh Smith for example, who obviously with us. 22-year-old got drafted, he worked for 4 years before he actually got drafted. Was still playing
it's a
high-level
childcare
footy
teacher.
in Queensland. Yeah, and now, he debuted Anzac Day with Mason Cox, kicked the goal, and now he's a regular in our team. But I reckon it's because of that maturity that comes along with it, where when you're 18 and you get drafted, it takes time. Like, you got to build into your body, unless you're an absolute freak of nature. But it takes time. You got to build into your body. You got to, learn the game. Where Smitty, because he'd been playing at a high level for 4 years, but also took his mind away from it. He come in and just went bang, and now he's flying. Now he's flying. Yeah,
sure.
So he's a perfect example of that.
Or if you come from another sport, if you take a look at Todd Goldstein or Mark Blitzovs, Mark Blitzov's coming from steeplechase of all
that's
things.
crazy.
Yeah, that's totally
That is
different.
crazy.
And now he's ruckman sized and
Yeah.
playing as a
I know,
midfielder.
playing-
Yeah, and he's
So-
playing in the midfield.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of what Dean Cox did. I mean, in terms of being an extra midfielder and really changing the nature of the
He
position.
did change it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, we
You're a
mentioned
very
this
smart
as-
man, mate. You're very smart. You know more than what I do.
Well, I have to tell you something. One thing I always tell students that I have, if you really want to know anything and learn anything, you have to be a student of the game. And I must have read about, over the course
Well
of 2 years,
and truly are, mate.
about 20 footy books. And in the off season, go to YouTube, watch all the old grand finals,
Yeah.
and learn every possible thing I could.
Sounds like me with the basketball.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The NBA.
That's what we were saying before we started the show. You guys are two opposites. You're an Australian obsessed with America. You're an American obsessed with
There you
Australia.
go. Well, people in the States call me the Aussiest American they
Oh,
know.
really?
So I take that as a high compliment.
Now, the Aussies, on the other side of things, in the basketball, 2 drafted in the top 10 in the
Yeah,
NBA
that's
the other
right.
day. And the thing that jumped out to me in this SB Nation article was the first sentence. Australia and the USA are having the weirdest cultural exchange in sports.
Mm-hmm.
What's going on? You've got Ben Simmons and Thon Maker who got drafted. You've
Top
got
10.
Americans over here. Where's this phenomenon coming from?
Well, I'll tell you, I think from the United States standpoint, we have an endless supply of big men that are guys that are 200 centimeters and bigger, and they're going to have very limited options, either playing in Europe somewhere or playing in South America. Jason Holmes' father, as a matter of fact, played in Israel, Argentina, and Europe, so that's the kind of option that he had.
Yeah.
But I really do think that there could be more Australian athletes playing in the U.S. I mean, with Jarrett Hayne playing with
Yeah, exactly.
San Francisco for the
Yeah,
brief
yep,
time he
yep.
did. And playing basketball. So it definitely can happen. The other thing, too, that's very briefly mentioned in the book is there are a handful of guys here in Australia playing AFL whose dads are American. You've got Tuke Miller, Zach Clark.
Yeah.
And,
Their dads are American.
Yeah, and Archie Smith.
Jeez, I
So you've
had
got
no
2 guys
idea.
for Gold Coast, and you've got Zach Clark for Freo.
Yeah.
So you do have
That's
that.
It's
crazy.
interesting,
Yeah,
isn't it?
yeah.
That's cool.
So I met Zach in Fremantle last year. It was funny. I was like feeling like I met a long lost
Yeah.
brother or something like
Yeah.
that.
Do they have American accents? I've never met any.
No,
of them.
Zach has an Aussie accent.
Does he?
Yeah. So
Yeah,
it's
bummer.
interesting because I guess it would depend on where you go to school and
Yeah,
everything. And
yeah.
so I imagine in my fantasy life here with my wife, if we moved here and we had a son or daughter and they
Be
grew up here,
Australian.
they'd have an Aussie accent.
Bogan.
Yeah.
Bogan as always.
Oh, yeah. Now I can do Aussie accent. I don't know about a Bogan accent.
Can you do
but-
an Aussie accent?
Ah,
Give us
fine.
an example.
Oh, look, mate, watch it enough times and you come down here and you sit here and you tick all the boxes of what you can do, and it's quite easy if you give it a chance.
Chuck a shrimp on the barbie and
That's,
you're
pretty,
right.
that's a lot
Well,
better than
no,
chucking shrimp on
mate,
the
it's
boat.
not shrimp, it's prawns.
There you
Throw
go.
the prawns on the
There
barbie,
you
mate.
go.
Oh,
Gaz
that's
is all over it.
fantastic. That is fantastic.
Oh, I love it.
Now, one segment we do on the podcast every week, Subway Sportsman of the Week.
Oh, yes.
Normally. Today
Yeah.
we're going Subway Sportsmen of the Week. We're going more than one person, and we're giving it to the whole Iceland international soccer
Soccer
team.
Nice.
Because over the last couple of days, they've knocked England out of the Euros, and England are having a tough run at the moment. So we won't
Yeah,
go too hard on them.
No, but we like when the Poms lose.
Because you
don't,
didn't do what we did. We kicked them out of the country.
Yeah.
We had something called a revolution, and bye, Felicia. That's what we did.
English people,
That's
if you're
how we
watching
roll.
this podcast, we love you. You're
We do
awesome.
love you. Go the Aussies.
But the Iceland, we also love an underdog.
oh, we do.
Yeah.
And
Yes,
their
we
coach,
do.
part-time coach of the national team, part-time dentist.
Oh, bull.
Yep.
Are you serious?
And Cristiano Ronaldo
That's
shut
a
him
wouldn't
down
you
as well.
believe
They
it.
drew with Portugal in the early stages of the Euros, and he said, I thought they'd won the Euros the way they celebrated at the end. They're going to be nothing in this
Oh, you
competition.
can't be saying that.
Mm.
And they've proved him wrong. They've knocked England out. And they're the Subway Sportsman of
That's
the Week.
karma.
So
Wow.
well done to the Iceland.
Well done,
team
Iceland.
if you're
They're the
watching.
biggest thing since Bjork.
There you go.
I
you
interviewed
go.
Bjork once.
Did you really?
Did you?
Yes. As a matter of fact, you know what?
You've done it all.
Well, but you know what? Maybe
have
that
done
maybe
it
that
all.
can be. You wouldn't believe it.
Yes.
Wow. Okay.
Here we go.
You ready
wouldn't
for
believe
it?
it.
Okay. Here we go.
New guest, new segment. Here we go.
All right. So
Might
I
have to be a
was.
permanent guest after this.
Hang on, before you go into this,
Yeah.
give us some background on this segment because you guys have a laugh at this
Oh,
expense every
well,
week.
Sammy here, the producer. So obviously, this is Sam. You've seen him before. It's his second show. Usually, Mark and I do the You Wouldn't
Nothing
Believe
more
It.
than a replacement.
And there's been some controversial stories in the last few weeks that we think have been made up, but Sam is adamant that it's true.
And I
but-
sit here over in the corner every
and as
week.
you can see when Mark turns around and goes,
Yeah.
"Come on, Sam."
And
Well,
they say, "Oh, it's not true. It's not true." I can say right now they've been true. Everyone except the first one's been true.
Well,
I don't
there
know
you
if
go.
yours
You've
is going to be true.
You've
though.
heard it here first, so there you go. None
Whether
of it's
this-
made up.
Whether
All
this
right.
is true or false, we're about to find out.
All right, here we go. 1993. I'm in an office building.
Year I was born.
Year I was born.
Oh, God, you guys really? Oh man. All right.
Yeah.
So I was in my first job then.
What month, just quickly? What
Yeah.
month was it?
This would have been
March?
July.
Oh no, I was 4 months old.
Okay, all right, now I feel a little bit better. All right, so I'm in an office building in the suburb of Washington, D.C. in Roslyn, Virginia, and I have an assignment from Billboard magazine to interview Björk, the Icelandic pop singer. And she just had a very appropriately named album because she just left the Sugar Cubes. It was her first, so she called it, well, I'll say it in my Aussie accent, debut. We would say debut in
Yeah,
the States.
debut.
Debut. All right, so she has this, and I get a chance to interview her, and I've listened to the album. It's really good. Back in those days, you all are way too young to remember this. We had advanced cassettes. We actually had cassettes that we would listen to, and it was really good.
Yes.
And I get her on the phone, and if you can imagine this, I've got to try and cut through hearing her Icelandic accent, and I'm on a speakerphone in a conference room with
would've been
noise going
hard.
by.
Yeah.
And I could not really understand what she was talking about. I asked her some questions about the album. The interview is going absolutely nowhere for like the first 30 minutes, and I'm already thinking in my head, this is going to be a disaster. They're going to kill the story. I won't get paid for the story. It'll be a mess. So anyway, finally what I decided, I just sort of really thought on my feet quickly, and I said, okay, Björk, tell me this. A lot of Americans have never been to Iceland. If I were to parachute into Iceland right now and land, what would I see? Then I couldn't get her to shut up for 45 minutes, and it was
There
a
you
dream.
go.
It was a dream because I'm
There you
I'm
go.
furiously taking all these notes down, and she comes up with this really interesting theory about her album because half of it sounds really depressing, which is okay. I kind of like depressing music because it's music you can read to or think to or whatever.
Yeah.
The other half is really bouncy and lively and fun. And by the time I sifted through all this stuff, what I got out of it was she was saying that her album really was Icelandic because Iceland's a country of extremes. That if you think about it, half the year it's dark, half the year it's nothing but sunlight.
Yeah.
And if you think about that in musical terms, then that's the way it really works. That
Yep.
half is really lively, and the other half, so one half is one part of the year and the other half is the other part of the year.
Yeah.
So we concluded, it ended up being a really good interview, and
Something came from nothing.
something came
There you
from
go.
something, which is all about what footy is really, because if you're on the ground, it's all about improvisation.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It really is.
Absolutely. Well, there you go.
Would you believe it, Adam Shaw?
I would believe it.
Yeah, there was
because
too
you
much
went
detail.
into it. That's a great story.
We'll believe that one.
right,
That is a
right.
great story. And
Yeah.
Great story.
just shows you've done music, done footy.
Well, yeah, that was
Picked a
another
lot of
journalistic
fun.
life.
All, mate.
I used to be a music
You've
critic.
done it
I used to cover crime and courts and cops.
Yeah.
That was kind of fun.
Interesting.
There
Very
you go,
interesting.
mate. We need to have you on more.
I'd love to be on more. Just call me up in the States. I'd be glad to do
We'll
it.
sort something out there. Now, do
Yeah.
you care? We always finish the show with this segment.
Do you care?
Run through the news and we find out, do you care? I want you to be brutally honest with this, both
Okay.
of you. If you don't
Alright.
care, tell me
Alright.
straight away. Wimbledon underway in the UK. First of all, do you care?
Yeah, I saw
do
some
you care?
highlights this morning, and Nick Kyrgios. I got to see him go on a little
Yes.
rant,
Favourite
and
of
I
this
finally
show.
learned how to
Yeah,
pronounce
mate.
his name. I had no idea how to pronounce his name. I would just sort of say Kyrgios.
Kyrgios.
But now that I know,
Usually Mark, who sits there and does a show with us, he's a massive fan of Nick Kyrgios.
oh
so
yeah.
He gets
So,
a mention quite often.
Oh,
on the
okay,
show.
yeah.
Him and Bernard Tomic, so.
Okay.
They're the bad boys of Australian tennis at the moment.
Okay,
do you
yeah.
guys pick that up in
Yeah,
the
do you
States?
guys
Yeah,
notice
we
that?
do. I mean, I'm not sure that he's a household name in the U.S.,
Yeah.
but every time I see something about Nick Kyrgios, because I do read The Age and I read the Herald Sun every day back home on my iPad to keep
course
up
you
with
do.
what's going on. But yeah, but every time he's mentioned, it's usually some rant that he
Something
goes
rant
on.
he goes
And
off.
he had a really good yesterday. He was really quiet, except he did go off on the umpire.
Do you remember the one
yesterday.
when... Sorry, Bernard, but I've got to say this. I know, he'll probably be watching the show anyway.
Of course he's watching the show.
Bernard Tomic. Remember
Rain
when...
delay Wimbledon. What else would he be
Yes,
doing?
exactly. Do you remember the one when when I think he lost, and it went till like 12 o'clock or 1 o'clock in the morning, and his excuse was it's past his bedtime.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
Do you
a
remember
good
that?
one.
Yeah.
Wow.
That was at the Australian Open. Pulling
You
out all
can't
the
be
stops.
say that, can
No.
you? Wow.
Do you care about Wimbledon going on at the moment?
Oh, I do, because I play it on my Xbox.
You play
There you
everything on
go.
your Xbox.
I do play
There
it
you
on
go.
the
Tennis
Xbox.
game on the Xbox.
Tennis game, Wimbledon. But it's a bit like, it's when 2012, so I think Fed Express, he was a great man. He's a star. Rafa, Andy Roddick was playing, all them guys. So that's the Wimbledon I play. So I do care, but I don't know who won last night, because that's what the next question is, and I got no idea.
And
Yeah,
Serena
well.
played yesterday too.
She did.
She did. So
yes.
I caught a little bit. As a matter of fact, caught a little bit of that at a place over in Collingwood, a little late night place to get something to eat. They had it up on the screen, so that was good to see.
Yeah, it's
that.
getting good coverage
Yeah.
at the moment.
Yeah,
It's on
it is.
the
Yeah.
TV a
It
fair
is.
bit if you can stay up late enough. Guess who
Oh,
won
wait a
last
minute,
night?
wait. What do you mean if you can stay up late enough? I'm in the States watching footy every week,
Okay.
getting up at 2 in the
At what time?
morning
2
to
in the
watch
morning?
2 in the morning.
Well, there
Because
you go.
here's the thing. Because when I watch Frio matches,
Yeah.
the only time that comes on at a reasonable
Collingwood
hour,
matches.
Okay,
Yes.
yeah, of course, is if you guys are playing Saturday Arvo matches here or in South Australia, because
Yeah.
then in the U.S. Pacific time
yes,
it would be the night
yes.
before at 8 o'clock.
Yeah.
Yes.
But Friday night footy for us is Friday morning footy, like at 2:40 in the morning.
So you get up
Yeah.
and watch that.
I do. I figured out a way that I can sleep for 5 hours the night before, take my nap, get up, listen to my app for the pre-match comments.
And then chuck a shrimp on the barbie.
yeah, chuck
then
some
watch
shrimp
it
in the
2
barbie.
o'clock in the morning.
With a
Well,
VB.
you want to hear something really funny? There are 2 Aussie pie shops that aren't
Is
too
there
far
really?
away. Yes, there
Oh,
is.
there you
There's one
go.
in Santa Monica,
Yeah.
and my wife and I would go and get that one. Then there's another one farther away in Costa Mesa, California.
Yeah.
And there's this pie that I love called the Drunken Cow,
Oh.
which is
You can't
steak.
relate that to Australians.
No way,
Surely.
right? No, it's steak and
Mushroom?
yeah, steak and
Like
mushroom.
mushroom.
Yeah, there you go.
Yuck.
There you go. That's good.
Yeah,
Mushrooms
I might stay away
disgusting.
from that one as well.
Yeah.
Now, we talked about Euro before. Copa America, I'm probably not saying that with the correct soccer accent, but that's taken place in the US recently.
Yeah.
Any interest in that? Chile defeated Argentina.
Well, absolutely, because we got steamrolled
I
by
saw that.
Argentina because Lionel Messi decided he was going to have fun with us and just kicked us to the curb.
Didn't Messi miss the penalty?
He did.
For them
Yeah.
to, I was saying that yesterday.
And he's called it quits on the international
Oh,
games.
did he?
Yeah,
yesterday.
that's right. That's
Yeah.
very big
one of the
news.
greatest of all time, isn't he?
That's
So,
right.
keep running around in the locals, but not going to play for Argentina anymore. So there you go.
Yeah.
Just can I just ask a question, just off topic? Because one of my best mates, loves soccer.
The one that's sleeping
And
on
I'm
the couch.
assuming, yes.
Yep.
The one that's sleeping on the couch. And I'm assuming you'd know a little bit about soccer, do you?
Yeah,
you
I
probably
do
know
follow
more about
Team
me.
USA,
But
yeah.
obviously you know Cristiano Ronaldo and Messi.
Uh-huh.
So he's a Ronaldo fan, so I like getting stuck into him about Messi being the greatest player of all
Uh-huh.
time, and he always says Ronaldo is.
Yeah.
Who's better? Who is a better player of all time?
That is a tough call. I mean, it
Please
was,
tell me. Just say Messi.
I
Just
wish
say
I
Messi
could
for the
answer
sake
that,
of
but
it.
it would almost be like, because the game has evolved a little bit, it's almost like saying who would be a better midfielder, someone who's playing now or someone who played 5 years ago, because the
Yeah.
game is changing. You know,
Yeah,
or
well, that's
or
good.
even
That's
better,
good.
who's a better full forward?
Yes,
If you took
yeah.
Tony Lockett and Buddy Franklin,
Yeah,
for
who's
example,
better?
Completely
well,
different
different
players.
styles,
Absolutely.
different
Okay.
styles, different eras.
So basically, you say Messi, no way.
Basically, I'm copping out.
Now, this is an interesting one that'll
I've
probably
seen this.
interest both of you guys.
I do care.
Barack Obama is going to be out of the office soon enough, I
Soon,
guess,
yeah.
when
Sadly.
Donald Trump or Hillary
Oh, no,
Clinton
no,
take
no.
over. We're not going
Absolutely
to go there.
not. Absolutely not. No. If Matt Damon can go there, I'll go there. Because you guys better have some room on your couch, because I'm bringing the missus, I'm bringing the dog and the cat if that man gets elected.
We'll see what
Simple
happens.
as that.
We'll see what happens. Barack Obama, when he finishes up in the Oval Office, wants to own an NBA team. Do you care about that?
I do care.
Do you care
Oh,
about
hell
that?
yeah, I care about that.
Yeah.
Which
Absolutely.
team would you like to see him owning?
Oh, well, you know what? I know the team that he'd want to own. He'd want to own the Chicago Bulls, because he's a massive Bulls fan. So I
Bulls
could just
fan.
sort of see him saying,
Yeah,
now let me
that
be
would
clear.
surprise me.
I want to own
He's
this
a man
team
of all accents.
Yes.
because I think they're the greatest team around. No, but I
Did you see? This is off topic again. Did you see his last speech? Was it his last presidential speech to the thing, and how he left it? See how he said Obama out.
Oh,
and he just
yeah,
left.
yeah.
Cavi Bryant
That was the most
impersonation.
gangsterest,
Oh,
thuggiest
yeah. Was
thing I've ever
this
seen.
was this the one on the Jimmy Fallon show?
Yeah, was it that
That
one?
was awesome.
Yeah,
That was
yeah,
so good
yes, I've
because
seen
it was
that as
slow
well,
jamming
yeah.
the news.
Yes.
That was
yes.
the coolest thing any president has ever done. I mean, no other president could pull something like
Yeah,
that
I know,
off.
I know.
Not at all. The only thing I'm disappointed about is, though, I wish you'd have the presidential library in Hawaii instead of Chicago, because that's another great reason to go to Hawaii.
Yeah.
There you go.
Well,
Not
there you
that there's
go, mate.
enough.
Yeah.
There's plenty of
Although,
reasons
see,
to go to
Donald Trump
Hawaii.
would say they would be in Kenya.
You know, I'd
as
love for you to
crazy as
meet.
Trump
I'd
is.
love for you to meet Kevin Sheedy because
Yeah.
Kevin Sheedy's the most knowledgeable bloke I've ever met in my life. You're giving him a run for his money. You are
Well,
almost
you
as
know,
smart as
that's another story. I did meet Sheeds very briefly in 2000 at the press conference after the grand final parade.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
I asked a question because he was coaching the Bombers that year,
Yeah.
which may have been the greatest single season team
Oh,
ever.
that one loss to the Bulldogs.
You know what?
And
I
Chris
remember.
Grant kicked the
See,
goal
here's
from the
another thing.
boundary line.
I remember where I was. My wife and
Where
I
were you?
were in Port Arthur, Tasmania. We were driving and we were listening to that match on the radio, and we could tell we really knew the game because we were listening to the match on the radio.
Yeah.
But Essendon, late in that match, kicked out on the full. And they probably would have won that,
Yeah, they
and,
would've.
and
They
they would
would've.
have gone undefeated.
Yeah, they would've.
So that was the question that I asked Sheeds at the press conference, and he stops me right in the middle. Is like, wait a minute, where are you from? And I'm like, San Diego. So my name to him became San Diego
San
after that.
Diego. Of
So I was
course
like,
it did.
no, you San Diego. You know, ask that question again. What do you want? And so, no, he's a really good guy, and I would love to
He's
meet him
good.
in person.
He's good.
And
We need
gotta-
to organise it.
Well, I got to give shout out to his personal assistant because she helped me find Dwayne Armstrong. If she hadn't helped me find Dwayne Armstrong, there might not be the chapter about Dwayne.
Everything
Armstrong.
happens for a reason, mate. People come into your
Yeah,
life.
exactly. The
There
footy
you go.
gods were with me.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, do you a baseball man?
No.
Don't care.
I've played it occasionally on Xbox, but that's it. I know you are. We know
Oh,
you
massive
are.
baseball
Do
fan.
you care that the New York Mets are playing the Washington Nationals as we speak?
Of course I do. As a matter of fact, I got to check my phone to see how they're doing. I know that we were losing 1-0 in the fourth inning and went to a rain delay. And yesterday we blew a 4-0 lead with our best pitcher on the mound and
Oh, so
lost
you played
11-4.
yesterday?
Yeah, because
Baseball's weird like
but
that.
yeah, well, you see, baseball's played 162 games over the course of a year. So imagine
A full year or
well, no,
like a
actually,
month?
it runs concurrently with AFL. So late March, early April, all the way
And
through
it
the end of
starts?
September.
And
So
it's done.
and then it's done. But they play 6 days a week. And the only
Amazing.
real break they
What
get is, seriously, the All-Star break, which is like your state of origin used to
Yeah,
be.
yeah.
And they there's a 4-day break there.
It's the only break they get.
Otherwise, they're playing. They're playing every day.
Yeah, I would too if I was signing
Amazing.
massive $120 million contracts for
Well,
10
that's
years
true.
and stuff. So.
Well, imagine this too. Imagine that you're playing in really serious heat, the way that you get down here in Melbourne in December and
what they're
January.
playing.
Yeah. That's why they're called the boys of summer.
Yeah, well, they don't run too much, so it doesn't matter.
That's true. They don't. That,
It's a
you know,
different
that's,
style of athletics.
That's right. But
Exactly.
that's a very good sport. So the closest thing would be relating to that would be cricket.
Cricket.
Yeah.
Do you like cricket? Just quickly.
You know
Just-
what? I'd love to learn more about it. It looks really interesting to me. And but it's funny because when Americans watch it, we're all thinking, well, why are they running on a foul ball? What are they doing over here? You know.
I've never in my whole life of living met a American that's like cricket.
No, neither have I.
You know what's interesting is that because our South Asian population is increasing, some of them bring the game with them.
them. Oh, wow,
and then
that's
even some of the Samoan population, they have their own
Yeah.
version of cricket.
Yeah.
And so in some immigrant communities, it's really growing and
Yeah.
really big. So when you get people from Pakistan, the West Indies, India, from Australia, all around, people get interested.
You know, I know why you guys don't like cricket, Americans.
Why is that?
Because the Americans are no good at cricket.
Probably so. Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
there you go.
I cannot imagine we'd be good at cricket.
Equivalent to us with baseball.
It's so hard to explain.
But
to cricketers over
are you some of the guys at Boxing Day that you get a bunch of beers and hang out
Yes.
at the MCG?
Yes, we are.
Yeah,
Yes, we
yeah, I
are.
know about that.
Yes, you do.
Well, you mentioned you want to check your phone, the scores. You're allowed to do that here.
Oh, I'm
because
allowed to do
every
that?
time OKC's playing, he's got his phone up
I'm an
the desk.
OKC man.
Oh.
Oklahoma.
Oh, okay, yeah,
Oklahoma
yeah.
City, so Kevin Durant. And
Yeah, sure.
Throughout the playoffs a couple of weeks ago, I was constantly checking my phone on the show.
Oh,
So, mate,
nice.
feel free to check your phone.
All right. I'd have to get up out of the seat to do it. So
Let's
I'll-
wrap this show up so we
Yeah.
can do that. Jumping at the Chances, the book. Gil Griffin is the author. You can tell people
Gaz.
where they can get that.
Yeah, first of all, thank you very much for having me on, boys. And if you want to get
been
a
a
copy of the
pleasure,
book,
mate.
thank you. You can get the book at Dimmicks, at Readings, at Target. You can also order it online through Amazon. iTunes has it, so if you want to get it downloaded on your Kindle. Really hope you enjoy it, especially all of you that are following Mason Cox. And as an American, I got to say I really appreciate the love that the fans are giving him down here. It means a lot that one of my countrymen is being so well accepted and made to feel part of
Absolutely.
everything. Yeah.
Absolutely.
He's a great man. It's a great book.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us, Gil.
No, thank you.
Thank you, Ads.
Beauty. Thank
See you
mate.
again next week.
See you next week.
Thanks to our friends at Subway, this has been another episode of Sports Galore. If you've got feedback on the show, or you have a topic you'd like the guys to talk about, use the club's official social channels to let us know. Go Pies.